So, in this video, I will talk about something that I've been thinking about for quite a long time, the toxicity that exists within the parts of beer industry. Now, before anybody misunderstands me, I want to make one thing really very clear, like crystal clear. Oh my god, I'm so. I fumbled even to say fumble. Oh my god. This is not an attack on beer as a genre or the actors. Okay, I've been watching BL content for years. It's been like 6 years, and I genuinely enjoy many of these stories, actors, projects. What I want to discuss is the culture that has developed around the industry, a culture that is, in my opinion, sometimes encourages unhealthy levels of attachment, intense shipping, typecasting, parasocial relationships, and making acting as art a secondary feature bands. They're of course my personal opinions. You don't have to agree with it. But after spending years of following this industry, these are some observations that I think are worth discussing. I will add one more thing. This is a very respectable video. This is a conversational opinion video. So I really love to know your opinions, your thoughts, but we should treat each other with respect. Okay, that is very important. With that, let's get into it. It's been around 5 to 6 years now. I've been into BLs. I have read mangas, I have watched dramas, and I have written stories myself. You could say I have been a BL enthusiast for quite some time. One of the first BL series I came across was very popular at that time. It was Than Type. I didn't even watch the entire show back then, but I watched enough clips, fan edits, and interviews to become invested in it. Looking back, I was much younger and less aware of how entertainment industries work. What literally caught my attention wasn't just the show itself, it was the actors. Everywhere on I would see fan meetings, showcase events, interviews, and compilations of their interactions. And that time I didn't even know what fan service was, because of everything I was seeing, I genuinely believed that these actors had a somewhat connection in real life and could be, if I'm being really blunt and honest, I thought they were a couple, real life couple. Now, this isn't something which is unique to BL. Hollywood, Bollywood, television industries, and entertainment industries around the world have used off screen chemistry to promote projects. Sometimes actors are encouraged to appear closer in public because it helps generate excitement for a movie or series. However, what surprised me as I grew older was how deeply this culture can become embedded in parts of the BL industry. In many industries, promotional chemistry lasts for duration of a project. But in some BL spaces, certain pairings continue for years across multiple series, events, advertisements, and fan meetings. The pairing itself almost becomes a brand. To be clear, I'm not just criticizing any actor, okay? Who am I, okay? There is nothing wrong with two people building a successful partnership. My concern is something very different. The culture of typecasting and the intense obsession with assigning the role, such as quote unquote top and quote unquote bottom. I have noticed that some fans become extremely invested in deciding who is the top and who is the bottom, not just for fictional characters but for actors themselves. Personally, I think reducing an entire story and representation of LGBTQ plus community to a single label misses the very big picture. These stories are about emotions, relationships, struggles, growth, and human connection. Focusing on top versus bottom discussions can be very dislimiting. What becomes even more concerning is when these conversations move beyond the characters and start targeting real people. Fans become analyzing interviews, body language, and personal interaction details about actors' private lives. Of course, audience make these assumptions, but we have to also ask what kind of culture has been created. What is encouraging this? Who is encouraging this kind of behavior? What is that incentive? Who is providing that incentive? It's that companies and industries itself. This whole ecosystem is feeding this. Content is often presented in a manner that encourages emotional investment, parasocial relationships, and in the pairing beyond the show itself. To be fair, audience today are much more mature than they were a few years ago. I have seen many fans really support actors in individual projects, celebrate their achievements, and respect their personal choices. However, I think there is still a darker side. There are many darker side to this couple culture and this industry itself. There are many layers, layers, top of layers, top of layers. I will take a point and try to explain it with an example. In many cases, the pairing itself becomes more profitable than the individual artist. As a result, when actors try to pursue their own goals outside the pairing, the reaction can be surprisingly negative. And the case I'm going to discuss is different because the hate didn't fall on the actors itself but on the company. I'm not trying to whitewash companies' images. I know these are business cells and they are also one of the biggest manipulators, but in this case, what I have analyzed was a bit weird. So let's talk about the top from the series. Their actors, P Smart and P Boom. This is just my personal observation from the articles, clips, content I have seen, and for the video itself I have researched. It always felt like P Smart had ambitions beyond acting. He seemed interested in performing, dancing, and participating. Like many people who enter the industry, he seemed to have aspirations of becoming an idol. I think he has participated in a survival show in China as well. Of course, there can be many reasons why an actor takes a leave from a project. Producer, contracts, management decisions, and business considerations all play a very much role to it. None of us know every detail behind the scenes, but what got my attention was the reaction. The amount of drama that emerged around an individual career decision made me feel a little unsettled. So, I'm sorry to call it a drama, but it seemed to be very exaggerated. It felt as if though some people were more invested in preserving a fictional or commercial pairing than supporting the individual's own ambition. And as I've said before, here the hate didn't fall on the actors itself, but they made company the whole villain. I'm not saying that companies are not trying to whitewash their images, they are manipulating. Yet it reflects a form of toxicity within the culture. When audiences become attached to a couple to such an extent that individual growth is viewed as a threat, that is where I think the line begins to blur between healthy support and unhealthy attachment. One thing I have never fully understand is the industry's obsession with turning a pairing into a permanent brand. I understand bringing actors back together if they have great chemistry. It happens every time. That happens in many industries, and if some actors happen to be a real life couples as their personal life, and good for them, happy for them. My question is entirely different. Why does the conversation so often revolves around the ship rather than the performance? At the end of the day, acting is an art. It is about portraying emotions. It is portraying the characters, different emotions, different stories, different characters. And actors should be able to play a romantic lead in one project, a villain in another, a comedy character in the next, and continue to grow through different challenges. But sometimes I feel as though the ship becomes more important than the art itself. And I feel really sorrowful. I'm really sorrowful about this. What I find particularly interesting is that many fans no longer see this as a form of typecasting, yet in a way it can be. It is a form of typecasting again and again when the same pairing is repeatedly marketed, promoted, and casted together because the pairing itself is profitable. The actors can become associated more with the ship than with their individual abilities. That is what I feel. And your individuality somewhere dies. If I great example, Singito Christ, the Sotus, the legendary. He is an intelligent person. He said that I took this much of time or I left this to itself because P. Christ wanted to be actor, and he knew, and if he would be carrying out with him, then it would become more about them than his individual acting career, and that is why he stepped back. And this is not criticism for BL or GL stories. For me, LGBTQ plus stories are not a single type of story at all. They can be romance, horror, thriller, mystery, slice of life, or anything else. I think for me, LGBTQ is a genre itself. The possibilities are endless. The problem arises when the industry starts treating the pairing itself as a product. The discussion shifts away from questions like, was the acting good? Was the story meaningful? Instead, are they still in a ship? Who is the top? Who is the bottom? Are they interacting on the social media? Are they a perfect couple? At that point, it feels as though the art is slowly being pushed into the background while the shipping culture takes the center. And while audiences certainly play a role in this, I don't think all the responsibility falls on them. Or I don't think that you can push everything on the audience. Industry respond to this incentive. Companies, management teams, producers, marketers all recognize that shipping culture can be profitable. So the question is not simply why an audiences behave this. The question is who is creating this kind of environment where this kind of behavior is constantly rewarded and monetized. That is where I think the real conversation about toxicity should begin. The second case, Om Nanon. Now, I completely understand why people are so invested in the actors. When two actors work together for years and build a strong connection on screen, fans naturally become curious about what happens when the partnership changes. People want answers. They want to know whether there was a disagreement, whether they had a falling out, or whether something happened behind the scenes. But what surprised me was how difficult it became for some people to accept any explanation other than the conflict. The attachment to the ship had become so strong that when the partnership came to an end, many fans immediately jumped to the conclusion that something terrible must have happened. I also saw the clip that she saw, but let's dig deeper into it. Heavy criticism followed, new collaborations were scrutinized, every interaction was analyzed, every clip was treated as an evidence. Yet the reality is that we simply do not know what actually happened privately. Is it possible that there was a tension? Sure. But it is also possible there can be a mutual understanding, that both people wanted to move in different directions professionally, that they had a different aspiration for their careers. Absolutely, it can be. What fascinates me is that many people refuse to consider that as a second possibility. Actors are not just one half of the ship, they are individuals with their own ambition. Some want to focus on acting, some want to become singers, some want to become idols, some want to dance, perform on stage, host shows, or explore completely different opportunities. And so when a ship becomes so powerful that the audience struggle to imagine these individuals having goals beyond that pairing, I think that's where the culture starts becoming unhealthy. This one case, the toxicity was just not how this situation was just viewed and scrutinized and devastating in the drama, but the hate that was received by the next co-actor who was paired with P. Om, that was P. Leng, is more than concerning. It's alarming. The amount of criticism and scrutiny P. Leng received pairing up with P. Om was, oh my god. Personally, I liked him. I found him on High Season, GMM TV, and he came across to me at least a very cute and bright personality, someone who's simply trying to do his job and pursue his career. Yet, because of his circumstances, he became the target of criticism from people who were upset about the end of a ship. And this is exactly what I mean when I talk about toxicity. This whole culture wraps so many beings in this chaos. Whether Om Nanon had disagreements, whether they drifted apart, or whether they mutually decided to move in different directions, we don't actually know. People can speculate all they want, but nobody outside those involved knows the full story. What we do know is that another actor ended up facing hostility because of assumptions and emotional attachments that had nothing to do with him personally. At this point, the issue is no longer disappointment, it is no longer simply being sad that a favorite pairing ended, it becomes harassment, it becomes entitlement. And that's why I don't think this toxicity appears out of nowhere. It grows within the environment. It is in the ecosystem of this BL culture, and that constantly encourages audience to become invested in ships as products rather than seeing actors as individual artists. When the industry rewards shipping, promotes shipping, markets shipping, and profits from shipping, it should not be surprising that some fans eventually become so attached that they react negatively when reality does not match their expectations. That does not excuse the behavior though. The responsibility still belongs to those who engage in harassment. But it does raise an important question. If this cycle keeps repeating itself, shouldn't we also examine that culture, the culture that keeps encouraging it? The third issue that I want to talk about is the reaction that sometimes occurs when an actor reveals a relationship, or when fans discover that an actor's personal life does not match the image they had built in their minds. In some cases, the level of disappointment can be astonishing. Now, disappointment itself is normal. If fans become emotionally invested in actors and stories, it is natural for people to feel surprised or even sad when the reality turns out to be different from what they had expected. Happens in like when in the straight series is that we usually see that they acted in a series, people speculated that they are a couple and something, and it turns out they have their own partners. Because why? Because it's strategy, it's marketing, and the same things happen in this BL industry as well. In this industry, it is, I think, it's on just another beyond level, and it needs to be talked about. What I find concerning is when that disappointment turns into a sense of betrayal. An actor should not be viewed as betraying anyone simply for living their own life. Whether an actor is straight, gay, bisexual, dating someone single, married, or choosing to keep their private life private, that is ultimately their personal business. Yet we repeatedly see the situations where fans react though they have been personally wronged. Rumors spread, criticism increases, sometimes hate campaigns emerge. As well as, I want to add one more thing is the fan service. The extent of fan service is on another level. At the beginning of the video, I said that Hollywood, Bollywood, other types of entertainment industry, they do this for marketing and advertising their series. I'm not saying that that's a very good thing to do or something. We're not going to get into that, but in this sphere, what I have seen is the extent of fan service is very weird. If I'm being really honest, it is very weird, and somebody needs to pick up that. People are responsible for their own behavior, of course. You are responsible of your wordings, but we also have to acknowledge the environment that exists around these industries. For years, audiences are encouraged to become invested in pairings, interaction, fan service, and carefully crafted public images. Emotional attachment becomes a part of the business model. So when some fans begin to confuse a market image with reality, the result is disappointment. And when the attachment becomes extreme, disappointment can transform into an anger. That does not justify the behavior. I'm not trying to justify any sort of hateful behavior. Simply helps explain why it is happening, that I'm trying to explain. The real issue is not whether an actor is straight or gay. The real issue is the expectation that an actor owes fans an identity relationship narrating in the first place. What is wrong a straight actor portraying a gay role, a gay actor portraying a straight role? In acting, for an actor, acting is the core, acting is the heart, not who the person is playing. If the person is able to express the emotion, justify the character, that's it. I do understand, people want to know about what is happening, their favorite actors. You watch this series and you want to know about, you're now interested in that actor, you want to know about it, but they are beyond that small thing of knowing and wanting. I give you a major example for this one also. As I said before, that I will be taking up the example to make you understand what I'm trying to say. So one is P. Bright. When aspects of his real life relationship became public, parts of the fandom reacted very negatively, and that's what I find interesting. Why should an actor's personal life create a sense of betrayal among the strangers? And what point does admiration becomes entitlement? And the bigger question is that who is again and again promoting typecasting? Why there are some actors in this BL industry who step out of this, not just because they are straight or gay or whatever, but I think that because they do not want to typecast themselves, because this is also kind of typecasting. If you are into a shape, you're gonna have to do just a gay character, a LGBTQ character, and that's why I don't understand it. The same question arises when vice versa is also true. That I'm not trying to say that other industries are not, they are saint. Tom Holland, when he did that LGBTQ character, he faced backlash. Questions about his sexuality. People need to refresh and restart their brains. In this video, I discussed 3 situations where I personally feel toxicity can emerge within the parts of the BL and the culture surrounding it. That does not mean other entertainment industries are perfect or free from similar problems. They are saint. As I said before, every industry has its own shortcomings, controversies, toxic elements. The reason I focus specifically on the BL industry is simply because that is the topic of this video, and an industry that I have spent years following and observing. There are my opinions. You don't have to agree with them. I'm not claiming that my perspective is the only correct one, nor I'm trying to tell anyone that they should or should not enjoy. I'm simply sharing my thoughts that I have developed after spending years watching BL content and following the industry and observing its culture. At the end of the day, I'm just one person. Who am I? But if I have felt this sense of discomfort at certain moments, then there may be other people who feel the same way as I did. And if there are people who disagree completely, that's perfectly fine too. The purpose of this video is not to attack anyone, it is to start a conversation. So if you do have your own perspectives, I would genuinely love to hear it. Maybe you have had a completely different experience. Maybe you agree with some points and disagree with others. Maybe there are aspects that I have overlooked. That's the interesting part of the discussion. All I ask is that we keep the conversation respectful. So let me know your thoughts in the comment sections. Thank you for watching this video. If you watched to the end, I don't think so even somebody reaches till the end. But I'll see you in the next video. I have to do something about my fumbling. I fumble like a football.